Hi everyone, Red Reefer here and welcome to the latest Focus Friday video. The subject of today is a question that I get asked a lot in the comments, and although I have made a previous video about it, I thought I'd go into it in a little more detail. And that is getting your fish to eat. It's actually one of the hardest subjects to discuss because there's no one solution fixes all. It really depends on the type of fish, of course. That's the first thing, but also the character of the fish. And yeah, I think the character is very important as well, because there are fish that are very hard to keep alive, and then there's someone who keeps it alive very easily because the fish just thinks, okay, I'll eat this, no problem. And then there are very easy to keep fish which will die because it won't eat anything, because it doesn't feel like it. So yeah, it's a hard subject, but at least I'll try to give you some suggestions and some good directions to get your fish eating. Well, like you have been able to see in the past 1.5 minutes, the fish are feeding on something. This product that I'm using is called Mastic. It's produced by the company called Easyreefs. I'll post the name in the description as well, so you can look it up. I'm very keen on this type of food, and you might have already seen why. It's because, well, actually I think 80% of my fish are eating from it, and that's very good. So if you have one type of food that feeds almost all of your fish, that's always a very good thing. And another good thing is that it also feeds the corals, so the corals will also enjoy all the little sprinkles and phytoplankton that will burst off of it when the fish eat it. So little particles will come in the water, and of course the corals will filter the particles from the water. So other than feeding fish, it's also good for feeding corals, indirectly of course. But we're talking about feeding fish. So yeah, this product I think is a very good solution for me, at least. So you can also see this copperband. It's a fish that is known as a very picky eater, so it doesn't always start feeding when you buy one. So first of all, when you go to your local fish store and you want to buy a copperband, please make sure that it already feeds on, for example, frozen food. So you can ask your LFS to put some frozen food in the tank, make sure it already eats it. That gives you a larger success rate. But then again, it also loves this mastic. These are the only two foods that it eats. So mastic and frozen mysis, frozen krill. So now we've discussed the copperband, which already eats from 2 food sources. So that's good for me. If a fish eats from 1 food source, then it might be limited because there's competition in the tank and it might not get enough. So it's always best to look for multiple food sources for one specific type of fish. That's the most secure way to keep your fish healthy and alive, because then even when there's competition for one type of food, then they can always enjoy the next one. So I'm not feeding this every day because it's pretty heavy bioload on the tank, and I'm not doing water changes. So I'm running a system without water changes, and I don't want to add too much bioload. So I'm feeding this twice a week, on Friday and on Sunday. And then the rest of the week I'm feeding frozen foods, mainly mysis and krill. And yeah, actually that's the main food source for all my fish, the fish in my tank. There's one exception, that's the dragonettes. So I'll zoom in on one for now. The Marin one right here. This is a female, and I also have a male one floating around somewhere, not sure where it is right now. And then there's the red scooter blennies, which are, yeah, it's a little bit hard to see, but there's one right here behind this Duncan, this little red thing you see there. It's also I also have a pair of those. So these dragonettes, they are somewhat more picky because they are really slow eaters, really picky, and they mainly feed on critters they find between the rocks, so little very small shrimp and copepods and all these kind of crustaceans like creatures in your tank. So they won't eat directly from the mastic. They will definitely eat some of the leftovers if there's mysis and krill in the tank, so they will, if there's some pieces left on the bottom, they will go for it, but they won't actively eat and compete for food with other fish. So these are somewhat harder to keep. Luckily I've been able to keep mine alive for I think 3 years now almost. So I'm sure they'll get enough food, otherwise they wouldn't be alive anymore. And the red ones, the red scooters, I've had them for about, well, 6 to 8 months I think now, so they're also doing fine. So back to the fish. Another one to mention is these Avansi, anteus. They're also known for somewhat harder to keep because they are like to feed all day, and of course in the ocean that's possible, but in your reef tank, if you feed every hour of every day, then your tank will get a lot of bioload, and it will definitely be too much in due time. So luckily these also eat from the mastic that floats around the water. That's why you see them swimming around so randomly. Normally they swim in a group, but right now they're looking for the little pieces of mastic that float around. So they will also eat mysis and krill, especially mysis, since the krill is a little bit too big for them. And I'm also using some frozen copepods, but I'm not feeding those daily. So I'm feeding those like once every week, something like that. So for now that's enough to keep all the fish happy. Yeah, it mainly comes down to looking at your different fish and making sure that each of them is getting enough food. You can see, you can definitely see on your fish if they are being well fed or if they are starving. When they are starving, you will see, you can see the lines of their I would say skeleton, but I'm not sure what the English word is for their skeleton name. I'll think of it, but then it's too late. But you can definitely see it also when they are swimming towards you, so you can see them straight from head on. Then you'll see if they are fat or not. So if you see that they are nice and bulky, then you don't have to worry about them getting enough food. But if they're really thin and not looking very healthy, then definitely look into the food you're giving, and if it's enough, if it's varied enough, and yeah, if they can get enough of it, if there's and if there's too much competition, you should definitely consider feeding more, because one of the guidelines that I'm using is when I put food in the tank and it's not gone within about 3 to 4 minutes, then I'm feeding too much. But if it's gone within 30 seconds or a minute or two, then I'm not feeding enough, because there's too much competition and not all fish are getting fed well enough. So then I'll have to feed more. So that's the way that I'm deciding if it's enough or not. So that's all, of course, that's considering frozen foods. So not this mastic. This mastic will be on the window for at least an hour or something. Like I mentioned, I still want to show you my male Marin dragonette. It's really bulky. That's why I like it a lot. It's like a battleship. And yeah, so you can definitely see it's getting enough food. It's healthy. It's moving around well. So if your fish are fat enough, they're moving around normally, they're looking healthy, then you probably shouldn't worry. But if they are, then you should look into the way you feed and if you feed enough. So I hope that this video has covered something you didn't know before, or that you have confirmed now. And I'll see you again in the next one. Bye bye.